Hi, I'm Charles Cote, and today I want to talk to you about politics. I know that's not what everybody wants to talk about, but with the 2020 election incoming, I think it's very important we take a quick step back and learn a lesson from history. Specifically, I want to talk about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So, President Roosevelt is the longest-serving U.S. president in U.S. history, and had great distinction in his first terms. He ended the Great Depression with his New Deal, and he carried the U.S. through almost all of World War II. However, as his term went on, he later developed health problems, specifically in his brain, heart, spine, and stomach. These led to exhaustion, and as his cabinet would later report, it led to him losing concentration, only being able to focus for about 15 minutes a day on his presidential duties. What this means is that the president was dying, and he made the three worst mistakes of his presidency in the last 2 years of his life. These had consequences, such as the perpetuation of Nazi Germany, the rise of Communist China, and the origins of the Vietnam War. First comes the Morgenthau Plan, written by U.S. Secretary of the Treasury Henry Morgenthau Jr. Henry Morgenthau Jr. had devised this plan to fully deindustrialize Germany after World War II, returning them to an agricultural society. And FDR almost immediately accepted this. He signed it with no revision and no research and no counsel, mostly due to his inability to concentrate on the issue at hand. Next, he caved to pressure from Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek and removed General Stilwell, who was both the Chinese ambassador and Chiang Kai-shek's correspondent. This led to incredibly decreased relations between the U.S. and China. From there, it was almost an entire severance from Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist regime, which, with no world interference, went on to kill almost 19 million of its own citizens, and later facilitated the rise of Mao Zedong and the Communist Party to overthrow it. Finally came perhaps the most damning. This is because FDR completely ignored the cries of Ho Chi Minh for the U.S. to get involved in the politics between French Indochina and Vietnam. The U.S.'s disregard for these politics led to a spiral, culminating in the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, where the American military did get involved on the side of French Indochina, which drug us fully into the Vietnam War. All this to say that because the president was dying, there were terrible consequences because of his health and because of his age. Now, why is this important to us today, and why is this important to the 2020 election? It's because of the four candidates that we have right now. At the front, we have Elizabeth Warren, who is 70 years old. We have Donald Trump, who is 73 and in poor physical health. We have Joe Biden, who is 76 and currently suffering from intense stress and coping with the loss of his son, Beau Biden, in 2015. And Bernie Sanders, who is not only 78, but currently recovering from a heart attack. What this means is that any of these four presidents might make it 4 years in the most taxing job in the entire United States. And they might be able to carry on with distinction and with their plans and their agendas that they have set forward. But there's also a possibility that they won't. That's why you have to consider when you go to vote, not just, do I like them now? Will I like them in 4 years? It's why it's so important to consider. Because, as we saw with FDR, the mistakes that you make as the President of the United States, with the full force of the Commander-in-Chief, can lead to terrible regimes, can lead to genocides, can lead to massive losses of life. And if we don't vote carefully and considerately, and if we don't understand that there are more than 4 years at stake in this election, who knows what could happen? So please vote carefully and considerately. I'm Charles Cote, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk.